Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a discussion for Hegemony. Lead your class to victory. Now, real quick before I start talking about this game, this is definitely coming after the video I uploaded where I did a channel update, so you might be thinking, oh, is this not, where's the run-through? Or is this not a no run-through review? Well, I no longer do run-throughs inherently. Now I just primarily will be doing discussions or reviews, and the people that I played this with I would have loved to have for the discussion, but as we're adults, they are not available at the time that I want to do this, so you just get me. But with that being said, let's get started talking about Hegemony. This was a game that I backed that was just kind of, I was like, oh, alright, cool, yeah, politics, economics, things that I actually studied and kind of majored in college. So sure, let's just back it and see what happens. And then I went through like a roller coaster of emotions by playing this game. Like there's a lot of Euro games that I've played recently and have uploaded on my channel recently. Brass is the biggest one right now. Wow, I can't even think of what it's called. It's Concordia, and I've played Hallertau recently, and all of them were just kind of like, yeah, this is good. This is a 7 out of 10. This is a good game. It's another Euro, and that's kind of where I've been feeling on Euros a lot lately. And I don't think this is technically classed as a Euro, but it's definitely more Euro than Ameritrash. So I just kind of played him, forgot about him, moved on. It has been a long, long time since I have played a game that after playing it, I kept thinking about it. And this was that game. I've heard a different reviewer say that a lot of games come out in a year. Some of them are good, some are great, and very few are special. And that was before I heard him say that. I'm like, okay, dude, you were paid to fucking play the game. Like, of course you're gonna gleek all over it. But then I played this, and then I'm like, god damn, is he right? This game is special. This is so fantastic. And it's no surprise because, to my knowledge, the designers of this game legitimately studied political economics was their background, and that is this game. So first things first, if you have no interest in that, you're probably not going to like this game. It's a heavy game, but at the same time they found a way to make it not feel heavy. That is a very rare thing. I would not put this in the same vein as a Vita Lasarda game, because those games are heavy and they feel heavy and you need a cigarette after. This one, you're done and you're like, I understood it a round in. Yeah, you're gonna be overloaded with a lot of rules, but as you're playing it after one round, you're like, I got it. I understand. It just fits. It makes sense, because I think the difference between this and a Vita game is this is stuff that everyone understands and deals with on a daily basis, or is very real, versus Weather Machine is not a real thing, and you're very aware you're playing a board game with a lot of rules. This has a lot of rules, but you're like, oh, okay, you did that because they did this, because this is what's happening, because that has happened in real life, and I understand how that works in real life. But at the same time, you're in control the entire time, so it's not like, oh god, I want to play games that don't feel like real life, where it's like, this is so thematic, but yet it's just fun. It's so good. So with Hegemony, this is an asymmetrical game where 4 players play different classes that are each trying to get victory points in different ways. So one player, I can actually show these because I got there. So one player is playing the working class, one player is playing the middle class, one player is playing the capitalists, and then the 4th player is playing the state. And in different player counts you in like a 3-player game, you don't play with the state. In a 2-player game, you do not play with the middle class. You just play with the working class and capitalists. And thank you, designers and publishers, for actually printing off player aids. This is essentially, when you're reading the rules, it's kind of like, hey, here's the general rules that apply to everyone. And then the last half of the rule book are these 4 sheets. Like, it's just these are front and back. These are copy and pasted of what is actually in the rule book. Because every player also gets every player also gets 4 player aids. These are succinct versions of the things under it. So, for example, if you're looking at your basic actions for the capitalist class, you're like, okay, these are my basic actions. I can propose a bill, build a company, sell to the forward market, make a business deal, lobby, or apply political pressure. And here are my free actions. And you're like, okay, I'm not really understanding how propose a bill works. Oh, let me find it on here. Oh, it's right here in that big section. So like down here, there's that versus what you're given. You might be thinking, oh, that's a lot of player aids. But honestly, you really live off this after you kind of have played around. The players are living off this, and then if you still need some clarification, you just go to this. This is amazing. This is so fantastic, because a lot of times in asymmetrical games, you can't really, they're so hard to teach. Because, I mean, I'm going to bring up Root. I'm sorry. It's the best asymmetric game out there, in my opinion. But a lot of the times, if someone's like, oh, I don't have a question, or I have a question about this faction, it's like, I've never played them, I don't know. You know, at this point, with Root, I have played every faction, but that took some time. But they're very difficult, because it's like, I don't know how your side works, I can't really help you, here's the rule book. You don't have to do that here. It's like, I'm not really understanding how making a business deal works. Oh, wait a minute, I have my own player aid, so when it's not my turn, I will read how making a business deal works. And then if something applies to general, like, things within the game, everyone should kind of know that. So what am I doing here? Oh, okay, well, we all have to deal with that. This is amazing. They could have just given everyone, this rule book as a rule aid, but they didn't. They left it, they gave everyone an actual player aid that tells you what you do in your turn, what your actions are, and then how your faction scores, and then how everyone's taxation works. And everyone's is a little bit different, but man, is this game just amazing. So, like I said, let me explain the 4 different factions. So the working class, which I'm assuming most people watching this would fall into, or maybe the middle class. No, definitely no one's falling into the state. The working class does a lot of things where they make money by going to work. But they have a lot of power within this, because like I said, everyone is asymmetric, so they deal with things a little bit different. But you're very invested in what everyone is doing. Like, last time I played, I was the capitalist, and I cared about what every single person was doing at every given time, because the working class, I needed to come work for me, but I also had to pay them, and I had to make sure that the minimum wage was a certain, like, I had to be like, okay, you're demanding a higher minimum wage, I can't pay you, and I'm not gonna, then they go on strike, and it's like, like, if I can get minimum wage lowered all the way down, then they'll be like, okay, we're going to go on strike, so you're not going to get goods. Well, I need goods to sell, so it's like, well, you're not going to get paid then. I'll just fucking sell the business. It's like you just get so into the real world of things. But yeah, so the working class, like here's their little minimum. They're basically just doing what the working class does. They're trying to, like, they have some small ways of like, they can kind of make business, but they basically rely on the capitalists and middle class to open jobs that they can go work. They deal a lot with the worker pool. Like, so for example, if there's not a lot of businesses, like if they have a lot of unemployed workers, they can start doing a demonstration so that it kind of forces the capitalists and middle class, mainly the capitalists, to open businesses, which cost money. so that they can go work. Otherwise, those players start getting penalized pretty heavily if they don't comply to the workers. Everything just makes so much sense in this game. It is phenomenal. Like, they... basically how they score is... where is it? Yeah, so the working class scores basically throughout the game. Like, they get a lot of stuff throughout the game. So by passing bills, they get points. Prosperity, when they gain prosperity, so they have a thing on their track. I can actually pull those out. The one of the major negatives I have with this game is the insert was absolute trash. I hated it. I hated everything about it. I don't even have an insert anymore because I was like, what's the point? It's not like this had a bunch of stuff to it either. Like, this could have had a better insert. But everyone's looks kind of similar, but relatively different. So this is what their board looks like. They have to deal with their population, because that's how much they have to deal with, but they gain prosperity, and these are basically victory points. So as they move up, they get 1 point, then 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, and it's exponential. These can be trade unions. They get victory points for trade unions. 2 points for each trade unions during the scoring phase, so that could be a potential 10 points if they happen to get these done. But they manage very little, like goods and services, as they get some goods sold to them and they can have some income, because how they get certain types of workers, if they use education, then they get, I'm trying to remember, education gets them a specific worker that can go work at various locations, and health, spending healthcare gets them more workers in, but also gives them more points. So like if they use healthcare, they get like, I think 2 extra points by doing that, which makes sense. Hey, everyone's healthy, more workers to be in the workforce. And it was so interesting because, like I said, I was going through a lot of roller coasters by, emotions with this game, because I watched, almost a full run through. Like, this game lasts 5 rounds. I think I watched up to the 4th round, and then I was like, okay, I got it, and I skipped to final scoring. But in their game, it almost felt like it was everyone against the capitalists, which is, makes sense. Like, if you're not the one raking in all the money, then most people aren't going to want to help you. And he wasn't even winning at the time. Like, he was very much in last place. But because I knew when I watched that playthrough, I focused on the capitalist player because that's who I was playing the first time we were going to play this. And I was like, oh, God, I don't want to fucking deal with that. I don't want to be up against... I don't want to have to try and, negotiate with everyone just so they can be happy and I barely scrape by. But that's not how my games have gone at all. Like, it felt like everyone was doing that. And I guess you could ice some players out, but everyone has ways to be like, oh, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. Like, if, for example, the state never wants to work with the capitalists, the capitalist has ways to bankrupt the state, which is not good for anyone except the capitalist. So it's like, you can do a lot. This is a negotiation game, which I love. And there's a lot of wiggle room with negotiation. You can do things like, it's like, okay, like, for example, a player who was the working class, he went on strike. And minimum wage was at the lowest at the time. And I didn't want to meet the demands of his strike because I was hemorrhaging money at the time. And so I was like, okay, what if I try and propose a bill to raise it up to the medium? So it goes up to the medium and you get more money, but it's not the most. And he didn't want to do that. And I'm like, I want you to know, I can just sell this business and you're not getting any money. Like, I can just refuse. Like, you're going on strike on for what do they call it? For luxury goods. I'm getting luxury goods over there. Why should I even pay you? And this is all real world stuff that is a legitimate business tactic to be like, why should I pay you guys? You want more money. They're not complaining. So I'll just pay them, get a little bit less goods. Like, yeah, this one is my most luxury good business. This one's giving me 12. That one over there is giving me 8. I think I can go without 4 luxury goods. But then it's like, okay, well, what if you vote for me in this particular bill that I'm trying to propose? Tell you what, I'll meet your demands, I'll raise it up to the maximum, but if you have to vote in my favor for this certain thing. So there's a lot of stuff, or you can just be an asshole and be like, you know what, not even dealing with it, selling it. I'll reopen another store. Like, it's like, you can just do very shrewd things. But I know I'm getting off topic because there's a lot of stuff with this game. But that's the working class. Working class actually does rely on the state for a lot of stuff. The state can manages education and healthcare and things like that. But that's basically them. Then we can go to the next one, which is going to be the middle class. So there's the middle class. There's a reason why they're not involved in the 2-player game, because they're kind of in between working class and capitalist. And they were honestly the class that was my worry, because it's like, well, you have 4. Middle class is obviously a real thing. Upper class is the capitalists. So, like, are they going to truly feel different between the working class and the capitalists? Because they kind of do both. They have to manage their population as well. They gain prosperity, although they lose prosperity quicker. But they run goods like the capitalist does. So they have food, luxury, health, and education. They can set their prices, think they can be bought from. They also run businesses. They have less options for running businesses, and it costs them a little bit more money and stuff, but they can have some, because the middle class is kind of like that shithole faction where it's like, oh great, I'm too poor to get any government subsidies, but I'm too rich to get any government subsidies, but I'm too poor to actually buy anything that I ever want. So I guess I'm stuck in the middle class, and I pay taxes that hurt me more than it hurts anyone else. But so that's the middle class, the way that they score, because they also pay taxes, and the working class pays taxes too. It's income tax. But they score points based off passing bills, prosperity. So when they gain prosperity, they gain value, but it's not exponential like the working class. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. Doesn't go up to 10, and they lose it quicker. At the end of the round, they lose 2 prosperity instead of 1. They can sell to the foreign market, gain a point, and then they have ways of gaining prosperity for scoring, and then game end stuff. But they pay taxes. They pay an employment tax for the businesses that they run, and an income tax as well. So they're kind of caught in the middle. And the friend I played this with, who did the middle class, I asked him if he felt different, like the working class and the capitalists. I'm like, did you feel like you were different, or did you kind of feel like you were doing what they did, and didn't really feel unique? He said that it felt different. Obviously, there's comparisons between the two, but he was still running like his own game. So that's the middle class. And then we have the upper class, or not the upper class, the capitalists, which is who I have played the most. And the capitalists deal a lot with revenue. So a lot of their spending can come from revenue, and then any reserve money goes into capital, and that's how they get their points. So they go up on this track, and like their capital is always kind of reserved. So when their token is moving up, it never goes down. So let's say at the end of a round, how I score is kind of off of, let's say I have 100 money in my capital at the end of the first round. That would go all the way up to 100. I gain 5 points, but then you get, I think it's 5 points, 3 points for each space of move. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that would be 15, 20 total points that I would get. But they score, that's really the only time that they score is during that time. And I can tell you, I have never made a jump. I've never had $100 in capital at the end of the first round. So there are ways, if things go really in your favor, that you can jump that much. But it's very difficult to do. But like I said, the capitalists, they, just like the middle class, have food, luxury, health, and education, and they have different, they can set the prices, and their prices are cheaper than, or potentially cheaper than, are they the same? Oh, I guess they are the same. I was looking at two different things. I was looking at food and the luxury. So they can set the prices, but the capitalist is sometimes being bought from the most because they have way more opportunities to open businesses. Because they're going to have, hopefully, more money to do so, therefore more spots for workers, therefore more goods to do, and through various actions they can make it to where it's like, okay, you're going to buy from me. No reason to buy from the middle class because they barely have any goods and they kind of want to use it for themselves. The capitalists, I kept saying because that's who I've played. The capitalist doesn't use those goods for anything. They don't have workers. So it's like, they're just kind of like their own pool. Oh, you don't need education from the state. Get it from me. I'm going to pass this bill, so state education is way more expensive. So come to me. And yeah, so they can have they can have a bunch of different types of businesses, and they sell these goods off. They can do like a foreign market or make business deals to sell these to make money. So they go into their capital, but their taxes are pretty insane. They also pay an employment tax and a corporate tax. So their employment tax is a multiplier, which is a lot. And then the corporate tax is based on how much money they have in revenue. And then after that, whatever's left over, they go over. But I have yet to figure out, I need to rewatch the video because there is a way for the capitalists to dodge taxes, but I don't remember how it was done. I want to say it's like if they don't have anything in revenue during a certain spending taxes phase, it doesn't pull from their capital, but I cannot remember how that's done. But it makes sense as well for businesses, large corporations, to avoid paying taxes. This was a donation, so we don't pay taxes on donations. It's like, yeah, fuck you. You hired that artist to make you that painting so that you donate it. So it's like, I donated to a local artist, so I don't have to pay the taxes on that. It's like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, so the capitalists, like I said, passing bills and then scoring during the scoring phase, like I said, moving that up. And then game end, they score based off how many goods they have left over. So that is the capitalist class. And then last but not least is the state. So here we are with the state. And the state is the most different from all of them. The state wants to make everyone happy or unhappy, depending on where you live and who your state player is. They might want to make it to where it's like, oh, I live in Louisiana. Well, everyone's unhappy here, so I guess I'll just not make anyone happy. But basically, they have a lot of influence. They can swing elections. Shit ton. They do have ways of getting goods, food and luxury goods. There are ways for them to get that, but it's through certain special circumstances. But for the most part, they're moving the middle class, working class, and capitalist class. They're wanting to move them up because they score based off of like their lowest two. So like if their lowest two is like 4 and 4, let's say they're helping the working class a lot, that's at 8, but middle and capitalists are at 4, they're only getting 4 points. And then they lower that by half. So if they can get a lot of people up, like at the same amount, they're generating a bunch of points. But they also do a lot of cards, and they have like public objectives they have to meet that can get them like permanent benefits from them. So they're like these tokens that once they lower their legitimacy with them by half, depending on how many tokens they have, they get to bump those up. So let's say they have 2 tokens of each, they lower everything by half, they move all of them up 2, so they're already ahead. Or if they've been helping one faction out a lot, they could divide or start focusing on another faction. Be like, well, I've been helping the working class, I have a lot of these permanent tokens, they're going to always sit at 5 at a minimum, whereas everyone else is at 1 or 2. I'm going to start helping them out so I can start generating a lot of points. They also generate points when public services are done. So like I said, they have public health and public education, If anyone uses those goods, they get victory points for it. And they also have a different way that they want bills to be at that can generate them points also. Like I said, the state is the most different and is either your enemy or your friend, depending on how they want to play. Like my very first game of this, I think, only went as well as it did for me because the state was helping me a lot. But also, it was helping them a lot. Because everyone has a lot of control with their own stuff as well as they control what other people can do. So those are the 4 different factions. And it's very nice. Like, the asymmetry of this game feels familiar, but still different. Like, everyone felt like they... Like, in Root, for example, everyone's goal is obviously to get to 30 points. It's a race to 30 points, and everyone's faction feels completely different from one another. How you interact with each other is going to be dependent on which factions are in that game. And that's, for me, the variability of Root is its strongest aspect. And that's why it's my favorite asymmetric game. Now, obviously, that is a woodland war game. This is not that. This is a political economic game. But yet, the 4 factions, while you can clearly tell were, like, well, this is, like, they're real life. The working class and middle class and capitalists, they're all familiar. It's like they're not too far from each other. They're not going to be so vastly different that it's like, what? Like, that's so... But yet, you're playing a different game. And you feel like you're doing different decisions based off what the other factions are doing. I think that that's what makes this game extremely, extremely special. What's also cool... Let me pull out the... is the way that they do voting. Because there's voting in this game. I'm about to pull it up if I can get everything out. Like I said, Rulebook, or not Rulebook, Insert was awful. Rulebook for this game is phenomenal. There we go. Oh my god. This is so stupid. Just give me the freaking board. I hope there's a 3D printed insert out. So, here we are. This is the policies that... There's 7 policies. Dang it, I was... Can I... Is there like... There we go. Cool. Alright, yeah. So, 7 policies that are huge for this. And what's really cool about this is nothing feels like it's missing. There is one thing that I'm surprised is not in the game. Not that I think it's missing. I'm just surprised it wasn't in the game a little bit more. But I'll talk about that in a sec. Hopefully I remember. But so you have fiscal policy. This basically determines how many public sectors are out for the state, how many businesses that they can run. It also allows for how many loans they can take before the state goes bankrupt. What's also really cool is depending on where these at, it kind of tells you what your country's government is set at. So if you're like all the way over here, it's high socialism. But then if you're kind of all over the place, you can be in globalism or something like that. I think that that's neat. But that's fiscal policy. Labor market determines what foreign trade is available. So, labor market determines... Labor market determines how much the minimum wage is set at. Taxation is what is based off the taxation multiplier, which a lot of people, like capitalists for sure, wants that very low. And the tax multiplier is interesting because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. And that's just because of the way the taxes are handled. And it does make sense. So that's taxation. Healthcare benefits is how much the healthcare costs from the state. Could be 10, could go all the way down to 0. And then education is kind of the same. And just depending on your game, these are going to be all over the place. These are the 5 major ones. You have 2 more, but like, for example, I said the state cared about where these were at. it's only these 5. Like, the state doesn't care about the foreign trade or the immigration. But the way taxes are, if, like, let's say healthcare and education are really low, then, like, taxes are going to be at, oh god, I can't remember exactly. It's like 3 times 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nope. There is a way for it to get to 11. I just don't remember off the top of my head. But if taxes are super high, or super high, but then education and health are basically free, well, that bumps up taxes because of how else is it getting paid for. And then you have foreign trade. That determines what kind of exports are available. And then immigration determines how many workers are in the workforce at the end of a round. You see how many workers come in. And all of these can be voted on. And players have tons of ways to be able to put in for voting. It's the only random element of the game, but you have a lot of control. A lot of cards allow you to influence the bag. So there's a bag that everyone has certain tokens in. There's an action you can do that allows you to just put more of your cubes in. And this is where a lot of negotiation can come in. I never felt like whenever you were voting, because you can either put and be like, I want to try and change taxation to be super high. You can either do a snap election to try and make it take effect then and there. So if you want taxes to be super low, so because you don't have to pay a lot at the end of the round, you can do a snap election to try and get it to pass. Or you can be like, okay, I'll just not do that and try and influence it at the end of the round. Because there's these influence cubes, they're purple, that if, let's say, the vote is not in your favor by like 2, but you have like 7 influence, you can be like, I'm going to dump all those in to sway the election so it passes instead of, doesn't pass. This was fascinating. Like, it didn't move in the games I've played. Healthcare and education are not touched on a lot. And in some videos I've seen, they were never touched on. But like taxation, like I'm sitting there like, hey, middle class player, do you want taxes to be lower? He's like, I'm fine where they're at. I'm like, I hate you and everything that you stand for. I'm gonna take all your workers then. So voting is really, really cool. I'm not gonna talk about like everything in this game. This is a huge part of it. There's other huge parts. So what I was talking about that was not in this game, and well, I know I keep talking about things that are really neat. If you ever needed like things to understand in a board game and wanted to learn, this is the game for you, because they have the rulebook is, how much is it? It is 35 pages. They have a separate concept book that is 42 pages, and it explains everything, like about why they did certain things and how they implemented it in this rule, like from theory to hegemony. Political parties, okay, conservative right-wing parties seek to change society slowly and in small ways or not at all. Examples of the latter include reactionaries who seek a return to a previous era they imagine as better, while examples of the former include modern conservative parties in European countries, which have abandoned reactionary policies and accept social change. Liberal seek to change some aspects of society by introducing more political and social freedom. They generally favor a medium-sized government with some ability to redistribute wealth. And then socialist parties seek to significantly change society. They generally favor a large government with substantial powers to redistribute. And they talk about in this, like, how different, societies and how different governments and different parties view things a certain way, and how they took that and implemented it in this game. Because there's other government games that bring up very heavy debatable topics. Shawson is one. I've done a run through and discussion for Shawson, but it felt more like a party discussion game. Yeah, you can bring in heavy topics. Hey, should guns be allowed to be brought into schools? And you kind of try and vote it, but it never even comes close to touching what this is. This is very much grounded in reality and years of study, and they explain, like, it's like, okay, well, why would this be in here if this is the case in real life? And they explain when they had to make changes to obviously still make it a game. Like, because they don't want to just be like, hey, here's your game and hand you this manual. But if you're ever interested, you could always read this and be like, okay, like, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't, like, completely read this front to back, but I know from skimming it that, you know, why they took some liberties in areas, but still yet made it feel like, oh, okay, you guys know what you're talking about. And what the cool thing, the thing that is not in this game as much as I thought it was going to be, maybe not thought, but where I'm surprised it's not in here, is religion. And it's because you're talking about political and economic stuff, and religion, state, and religion are supposed to be separate. Obviously, that's not the case, because any presidential election, they always talk about what they believe in, because that sways voters. That's not really brought in here, and I think, because every class that you play has cards, and these cards dictate a lot of the actions you can do, or powered up actions. And that might be where they put it, because there's no, like, church, you know, thing coming in. Oh, sway the election based off church. It's not like that, but I always feel like that is influence how businesses are run. Hobby Lobby is a well-known Christian organization. It's like, okay, so there's your capitalist. Working class probably matters based off their religion or no religion. I was just surprised that it's not in here, and they could touch on it in this. I haven't found it. Or they could have been like, you know what, we don't feel like dealing with that. Like, so they just omitted it completely and had, like, elements of, like, oh, maybe this is what that card is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the religion card. Who knows? Maybe that's an expansion they might do. But, yeah, the card play in this game, every faction having different... I keep saying faction. Every class having a different deck, which there are similar cards in the decks. Like, it's not 100% different, but there are different cards that apply to the class that you're playing. The fact that you care about everything that you are... that you're doing, and that you care about what everyone is doing, the negotiation that's in this game, it's a masterpiece. This game is awesome. The one major negative I have about the game is it is long. This is a very long game. Like, especially if you're learning it for the first time, it's going to take... This is the game of the night, honestly. I think, and I mean... It's probably like, yeah, 3 to 4 hour game. Like, I'd say depending on group, but this game has a lot of interaction between players that when you're introducing negotiation and the asymmetry of interaction, it's long. So you're invested the whole time, and it's like, oh shit, that was 3.5 hours? Wow, that flew by. That's how it is for me anyway. But even then, understand that this is one of those games that takes some commitment to, especially if you're going to try and learn it, because no game I've ever played gave me a textbook, a college textbook of political science with it. That's my only negative, and I don't even really think it's a negative. It's just something to be aware of, that you're not going to be like, oh no, this is an hour and a half game. Root is only as short as it is because it's a race. Once someone hits 30 points, boom, it's done. This is not that. You last 5 rounds. Eventually, and luckily it's not like you can't really draw out the rounds. The rounds will end. I believe everyone gets like 5 turns. Yeah, everyone gets 5 turns because you have 7 cards in your hand, and whether you do the action on a card or you choose to discard and do a basic action, you'll be down to 2. So you get 25 turns in a game. Yeah, this game is absolutely phenomenal. So I know I've talked a lot about it. Because I'm doing just discussions. I don't want to do where I do a how to play in the middle, but it's like I can show you guys components and talk about those specifically. It's fantastic. So the question is, is this is a complete game. And they actually have some small expansions in it, like mini expansions. Like they have a crisis response. This changes the way the IMF intervenes when the state ends up with more loans. That's really cool. I haven't played with these, by the way, but they are in here. They have alternative events, so changes the way the state interacts with events. Like I said, there's event cards that the state has to deal with to get benefits. There's alternate events. There's hidden agendas. Each player has a specific task to fulfill during the game to achieve additional victory points. And then there's new action cards. So each faction gets 5 cards that are a lot more interactive. So there's like 4 mini expansions, as well as another one that's really, really cool that I haven't tried, though. It's historical events. Like, this is a really neat idea that I definitely want to try at some point, but it's, yeah, like historical events where through different eras. It goes from early period of the major events from the 18th and 19th century to period 1, which are 1900s to the 20s, then to the 40s, then the 70s, then the 90s, then the 2020s. And these are just different things like, oh, okay, well now we have end of Mediterranean dictatorships. That was in the 1970s. You have the foundation of GATT. You have the Russo-Japanese War. You have, let's see, the U.S. financial crisis. Oh yeah, that was 2007 to 2008. And these are just like events that can change the game. I think this is a really neat mini expansion, and it's super nice that these are like either module or mini expansions, because they're not going to completely change the way the game plays, but it's still going to give it some legs. Because that is a concern for a game like this, where it's like, okay, you only have 4, like Root has a plethora of factions that the games can be different every time. It's like, when you have just the 4, what can you add to it to give your game legs? So I think those are really strong starts. My question is, are they going to do any expansions, and what could they add? I don't know. Like, upper class, but that's basically the capitalists. Unless the upper class is just kind of the rich 1%, they just get everything handed to them and they win every time. That could be there. I think they could do something with how smart these designers are. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is a first-time designers and first-time publisher, which is such a strong start. I think they could add the church if they weren't going off like the working class, like that kind of concept, and they want to do something similar to the state, where it's like the state is so different from the other 3. The church could be a really strong faction. I don't know. They could do a bunch of like overseas stuff, do more mini expansions where you're dealing with events like war and stuff, and how that affects political, because they did it in a way where it's like, this isn't so, like, it's like, I'm not sitting here and going, this is American politics. That's what I draw from, because I live in America, but this could be played in Europe, and I guarantee you will be able to, oh, this is what happened in Europe. Like, you pull from the area you're playing from, because they made it that generalized, but yet still, God, it's so smart. And so they could do that. They could bring in like war and stuff like that, because that affects everyone. Hey, how am I going to run my businesses when I have to deal with less workers because they all joined the military and now they're overseas or they're doing something? It's like, okay, how am I going to do all that? I think there is room for expansions for this. I just don't know what they could do. But based off how this game was designed and made, these designers are smarter than me. I think they can figure out, at least I hope that they do support this game. But more factions, more different classes to play. I like the little stuff off to the side, the specialized events or the historical events thing. I think that's really cool. But what's going to give this game the most legs and keep it around and talked about, I think, will be actual player factions that people can choose from. That's like, okay, well, instead now we don't have the capitalists, we have this. Instead of the state, we have the church. Stuff like that. But yeah, that is my thoughts on Hegemony. On a scale of 1 to 10, it should come as no surprise that this game is a 10 out of 10. Like, honestly, I almost gave it a 9 because of the commitment this game takes, and the theming of it is going to be of interest to almost no one, like, except me. Like, my wife was like, ooh, what's this? And I was like, oh, you're not going to like it. And she's like, I want to try it, because she saw the historical events box. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're going to play the state. And this was the very first time we played it. And she, like, halfway through, she's like, I don't like this. I'm like, I told you. But she appreciated it. It definitely wasn't a game for her. But yeah, like, I almost gave it a 9 because it's like, how often is this hitting the table? But, I mean, that concept book, like how just wonderfully smart it is, everything about it. It's like, gameplay-wise, I have no complaints at all. So, yeah, I have to give it a 10 out of 10. This is phenomenal. So, that's my thoughts on Hegemony. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments below. If you want to see a run-through, then also let me know that. Because, like I said, I'm changing how my channel is from this point on, at the time of this recording, on. This is all you're going to get unless multiple people tell me they want to see a run-through of it, then we'll make that happen. And then what may come, I may do if you want to see a solo discussion, because this does have a solo variant to it. If you want to see a discussion for that, let me know that in the comments below. Also, I can give you one of those. But if not, then let me know what you think of this. And like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.